So I have a rapid fire round for you. This particular question should be at the heart of every teacher in the country. A word that describes the future of teacher education.
In order to get performance, ultimately for children, the curriculum is what the teacher does. Teacher performance is the critical part.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's episode of our podcast series, Changemakers in Education, where we learn from our leaders. Today's guest is someone whose journey spans from living in a tribal village and working with Eklavya in Madhya Pradesh in the 1980s. If I may say correctly, it's 1986 when he started his journey to shaping national frameworks and advising international programs, Mr. Subir Shukla. So, welcome, Subir, to the podcast.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
just to give you all a brief introduction about him. So, Mr. Subir Shukla is a leading educationist in our country who has extensively worked across India, Asia, and even Africa with a deep focus on improving a quality of education, especially for marginalized children. He has held pivotal roles such as Chief Consultant for DPP and Educational Quality Improvement Advisor to the Ministry of Human Resource Development, where he played a key role in developing the quality framework for the Right to Education Act in 2009, which came. He continues to guide large scale teacher professional development, including a process currently reaching more than 150,000 schools across Uttar Pradesh and contributes to national vision setting as a part of Niti Aayog's School Education 2035 team. Alongside the system level work, he has also nurtured children's voices and creativity, children's literature, and early learning publications, adding another dimension to his lifelong commitment to the education. It's honor to have him with us to discuss what it truly takes to prepare, support, and empower teachers in India and beyond. So, Subir, it has been incredibly, I'm really honored to have you here. And just to start with, so you began your work in education right from ground or grassroots, I may say, if I may say, with very hands-on place, living in a tribal village and working in MP. So that kind of start is kind of unusual for someone who later helps to shape the national policy, right? And I want to begin with that early chapter of your life because it seems to have shaped everything that followed to me, right? So, what first drew you into this field of education, and how has that motivation evolved over the period of time?
So thank you so much, Varun, and really happy to be here and excited to have the listeners to this podcast go through whatever we are going to share. So, as you mentioned, I began in 1986. Now, before that, I studied in Delhi University. I was teaching here, and for anybody who was alive at that time, there was so much poverty all around you that you could not feel that if you're a privileged person, you should not do anything about it. There was no. It was very natural to think of what really is the best way forward. For whatever reasons, I just thought that maybe education is the right way. And as I began working on it, I realized that yes, education is the right way, but we don't even know what really works. I had traveled to a number of organizations. There were no NGOs at that time. There were voluntary agencies, some of whom were working in different places.
Right.
And I realized that nobody had any real idea of what would work. So, in the organization that I was with at the time, Eklavya, we decided then to work on uh, early learning in primary stages. And the best way was then to work in an area where you could understand the ground realities. So I shifted from Hoshangabad, where I was, 70 kilometers further south, to a tribal area, and I lived in a village, and I worked there for 6 7 years with a focus on understanding what works, what doesn't. And I have to say that the very first few months itself clearly brought out that everything we were doing was founded on assumptions which were simply not true on the ground. And like children were definitely not backward. unaware as we thought they knew so much. Our notion that learning will happen in a continuum every day didn't work because children could not attend every day, and so on. So there were a number of things I learned there in the next 6 to 7 years, which have been the foundations for the work that I have done, and I think also for the kind of influence that that work has had on others.
Absolutely. That's really great to know. I mean, and even for me, who have been in the sector for last 6 years or so, if I may say, and it is still fascinating to see what is the ground reality and what we are being told, right? And that perception keeps on changing day by day when we
Absolutely.
interact with people like you or leaders like you, for that matter, right? So that's really great to know. And since you have played many roles since those early days, if I may say, facilitator, consultant, advisor, leader. So all these roles you have played in multiple organizations, right? And if I may ask you, which of these roles, according to you, have challenged you the most and why?
Yeah, so actually, to me, the most challenging is that part. So first, just to make it clear that it's lovely to work with children, and anytime you're not doing that, you feel you're making a sacrifice and doing other work. But the other work is necessary so that our children have a great experience overall. I think
Agreed.
working with the policy or with institutions is challenging, but it is not deeply challenging as a person inside you because it's all about data, figure, and things are not directly in front of you. To me, the most challenging bit is to work directly with teachers, especially the phrase often used is training, but I think what we really mean is trying to help teachers change and become very different people. Very often, that for whatever reason, the teacher is not doing what he or she should, or he may even be misbehaving with children. And actually, your instinct is to lash out at the teacher. But that is your objective is not to prove to the teacher that the teacher is wrong. Your objective is that the teacher should become a different, better person and a better teacher. How do you do that? And the challenge is because you have to work on yourself. Are you the kind of person who can enable this person in that difficult situation to become a better person? It's and more skilled and actually have different attitudes and practice things differently. So I think this to me and I guess for anyone is a very big challenge. And even now, after 40 years, when I'm placed before a group of teachers, especially government teachers who have a permanent job, to whom nothing will happen if they don't pay attention to me, my question is, why should they bother about what I'm saying? And I
Absolutely.
think the challenge is to find the answer and do it things in such a way that they are concerned with what you say.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, completely agree with this. And so what, according to you, Subir, are let's say most common misconceptions about I won't say teacher training, and it's about making them aware about what they can do or what they can reflect upon, right? And so, what are those most common misconceptions according to you?
So I think the most common misconception is that teachers don't know what to do,
Okay,
or they are,
agreed.
or that there is something wrong in them because of which they do not do. We a lot of times we think of them as villains or as people who are not up to the mark, but in reality, things are very different.
Yeah,
Uh, I want, in fact, I want to elaborate on this because people will want to know why I'm saying this. So, most teachers are faced with a situation where they are asked to do that which is very difficult or impossible to do. I call it the DTF, design to fail situation. No teacher becomes a teacher to deliberately become a bad teacher. Everybody has some idea that they will do something, but what do they find? They find that they have to deal with more than one class at one time.
yeah,
Children may not know the language. They cannot come every single day at the same time. The group is of very varied levels. The
right,
government itself is putting pressure on you and is surveilling you. And you are not able to get the kind of traction, the support in the class that you want. As with my experience, I understand it is very, very difficult to be a teacher and there are logistical issues. So, like your school runs till 4 o'clock, but let's say the water supply comes only from 3 to 3:15.
mm,
What do you do? So
true,
it's not easy to be a teacher. And I think being empathetic is extremely important.
important.
I have found repeatedly, and this is the other misconception that I'm addressing. Many people feel that telling teachers the right thing is what will help them. No, what will help them most, and I have a lot of data on this, is listening to teachers.
Correct.
So if you ask these four questions, what do you do? What do you like doing? What do you find difficult? And how can we make your life easier? You will find, and I have found repeatedly, that teachers start doing different things in their class, even though you never mentioned what they should do. That is because all of them know what to do, but somehow that internal configuration is not there. But just by listening to them, you can create a situation where they now feel like trying things out. Then they will come and say, I've tried this. And then you have a dialogue, you can engage and you can go forward. And lastly, I just want to mention the other misconception that people have, and I see this too commonly. Just like when children learn mathematics, you learn number, then you learn addition, you learn multiple. There's a sequence.
Yeah.
Nobody will start with multiplication.
Right.
So, in the case of teachers, there are certain things they must learn first, then they will learn other things when it comes to pedagogy.
Mhm.
So, they will first learn to do activities which are mainly oral in nature, then reading, writing, and then TLM based.
Yeah.
Very often, people start straight away with TLM based activities before
Correct.
the first two, and that doesn't work. Then teachers say this whole thing is bad. So, that
Right.
is the result of misconceptions about teachers. We can overcome many misconceptions like this.
Right. Fair enough. I guess that's really insightful. I mean, some of this misconception I may say I have heard over the period of time, and as I mentioned earlier, it sometimes sound really I mean true that okay, so many people are saying that must be true. That's the kind of thing, right? But these are ultimately misconceptions. So that's really great to know. So just I mean, building on this, taking cue from what you just mentioned, right? And as you are aware, Sterlite EdIndia Foundation is also working into teacher education. So what, according to you, is the effective teacher education program? How it looks like, according to you? And let's say if we are working towards that, then what are those changes we should look for when judging whether the program is actually effective or not?
So I'll share with you what I've learned after a lot of large scale work. I've had to do teacher training programs involving 1 lakh teachers more than 50 times in my life, and from the national government, from the state governments, and in other countries. And what I learned is that you have to distinguish between three different things. The first is competence, the second is performance, and the third is effectiveness. And that how each of these happens will explain how to do an effective training program. So I'll explain each of these. So competence is what a person has the ability to do.
Mhm.
So
Right.
a person may have done MEd and a person may have done a DEd. The MEd person will have more competence.
Right.
Performance is what they actually do. Now here we get into a difficulty because a person with MEd does not necessarily do better than the person
The
with the
person.
lower qualification because motivation is missing or conditions are missing. So, in order to get performance, ultimately for children, the curriculum is what the teacher does. Teacher performance is the critical part. So, competence plus certain minimum enabling conditions, they add up to actual performance.
Okay.
Those conditions include, is the pupil teacher ratio okay? Is the teacher provided support on the time required? Is the material there? Is there enough teaching learning time? Suppose I have given training on, let's say, arts, but there is no arts period at all. That training is not going to be effective, right? So you have to look at those factors as well.
Correct.
Now, two teachers may be performing equally well,
Mhm.
but in the case of one teacher, children's learning will improve. In the others, it may not happen.
Right.
There are other supportive conditions. One teacher may be getting academic support, may not be getting academic support. So effectiveness then is what is the improvement in students' learning or development that your training inputs bring about. And that starts from creating the enabling conditions, then working on competence, then working on performance, and then working on effectiveness with the supportive condition. The whole thing put together adds up to effectiveness. Now, within this,
Yeah.
it's also a misconception to believe that training is about workshops.
Mhm.
It is not. It is only one component.
Right.
What happens before the workshop and what happens after the workshop? Is there help when required? Is there clarity on exactly what I have to do and how well I have to do? For example, is the performance indicator clear? Are there standards with descriptors in it? All of those factors, they add up. And the last bit that I will mention is on the one part which mostly people see as training, which is the workshops.
Mhm.
If you are doing a training workshop or an interaction online or whichever way, uh, you know, teachers look for answers to four questions. They may not have those clearly in their mind, but that's what they need.
Okay.
Which is, what exactly do I have to do? See, mostly teachers get vague things. They will be told, engage children, make learning interesting, but how? And with these children, how will I do it? Their second question is, why should I do it this way?
Mhm.
The third question is, how do I do it in my situation? So if I say use this picture, but that picture may not work in their situation, what to do then? And the
Right.
last question is, how do I know I'm doing it right? Now, this question is relevant because, if you are looking at student learning improvement, that will happen after a few weeks or some months. But today, when I do, how do I know that I'm doing it right? And
Mhm.
for this to happen, teachers need an experience where they themselves experience the kind of thing they have not experienced before and what they have to do in their class. So if I do a workshop where people forget having lunch,
Mhm.
that is something they've never experienced in their life. If they
Right.
start, they thought they could never draw, they could never sing, they could never create a material or an artwork, and they start doing that, then they're discovering that there is something inside them which they did not know. Is there scope for self-discovery? And that is what people will express gratitude for. And then you will see that there is an eagerness to try, but if you do not convert that into a very detailed step by step plan of what you will do when you go from this training into your classroom, so like a transition plan, whatever you were doing before to what you are now supposed to do will not happen in one day. So
Right.
the first week you make only two changes, next week two more, next week two more. And how will you do it exactly? If teachers leave with that clear plan, clear indicator, and the assurance that when they get into difficulty, they will get help. That kind of training input is the one that is most effective, whichever form, online, in person, it doesn't matter. But these conditions are required.
That's great. That's great. I guess plenty of powerful insights I gathered from this. First, being, let's say, performance is not only about competence. That is, I guess, the most important for me. It is also about the enabling conditions, right? You have to ensure competence is, uh, I mean,
Backed by
complemented with
goals.
the enabling conditions. Then only the performance can happen, right? So
Correct.
that's really great to know. And the reflection part of it, I think. As you mentioned earlier, also four questions that every educator needs to ask himself or herself, and that's where the system also needs to revolve around that. How we can make them reflect more upon these questions on day-to-day basis, right? That is really great to know. So thanks a lot for sharing that, Subir. So just moving on this. So teacher preparation, obviously, in service, pre-service, both the segments are there, right? But if we talk about the pre-service part of it, according to you, what is that one change which can happen in teacher preparation, which will impact the most teachers' capability to handle diversity in learners, which may be diversity in terms of language, socio-economic background, or even learning levels?
Yeah. So, what happens is that I commonly see that a lot of the time there is a lot of focus on content, conceptual understanding. But I think, in pre-service, teachers need to deeply experience and internalize the teaching learning process. The
Yeah.
kind of process which our policies advocate and which I have also been talking about for a long time,
Mhm.
they involve taking part in carefully designed and engaging challenging experiences which
Right.
lead to reflection, application, and scope to consolidate for oneself, which I call ERAC, experience, reflection, application, and consolidation. And once teachers have experienced that this is how learning happens, then the next question arises, how can I make this happen where the students are very diverse?
Right. Right.
So, for example, is it possible to create a game in which children at different levels can participate by changing the rules? when asking a reflection question, if I have a student who is not able to, let's say, listen or hear well, or is not able to see, how do I change it for him or her? If a student is bringing another language in, how do I pay attention to this child? Can I create self-learning opportunities so that most children are busy, but then engage with some other groups while others are busy, and give them extra attention and more time? Equity is about different children getting different amounts of time from the teacher, and adapted versions of the pedagogy appropriate for them, and a
Correct.
chance to bring their knowledge into the class. And this last
Yeah.
part I will really emphasize a lot. Every child is an expert on something or the other.
Right.
So even a child who supposedly suffers from a severe mental disability is an expert on her caregiver's moods. By getting this child to talk about that, I will be able to create engagement in the process. So in pre-service training, it's important that teachers who are trainees should experience this process. This should be practiced with them. The process of diversity itself should be practiced with those teachers. So I'm looking at a differential classroom within the in-service course, pre-service course
Please,
itself,
Varun.
and reflection and a scope for them to try it out when they do their practicum. So this is how I would say that by changing their experience, we could do things very differently. And
Absolutely.
in the world of AI, a lot of things people get from many other sources, but this experience you can only get in person with the teacher educator facilitating it.
Absolutely. Agreed. I mean, there are again ways to enhance that experience using even ARs and VRs, right? Augmented reality and virtual realities of the world. But again, coming back to Indian context, that might not be the feasible solution, completely feasible solution at this point of time, at least, right? But completely agreed on this part. So just building on this bit, the hands-on experience part of it, right? So what according to you, what is your opinion basically about the hands-on exposure to the pre-service teachers, student teachers in the system right now, and what can be done additionally to enhance that experience further?
So what is the difference between the hands-on work that teachers currently do and what they face when they actually become teachers?
Yeah.
So the difference is that when they actually become teachers, they face a group or a classroom which they have to actually turn around.
Right.
By like if that's a maybe you can say an industry type of term. By turnaround, what I mean is it was not functioning very well. They have to make it function better. Children participation may not have been there much. They have to make that happen. Children learning may not have been very strong. They have to make that happen. So there's a big shift they have to bring about. But when they do the practicum or the teaching practice, they're given a class where everything is generally okay. They have only to learn how to do this little bit. That is no preparation for the work they have to do. And they end up then parroting or mimicking the kind of teaching they have experienced. So if you want, it should be more like an internship where you're given a real group, you have to make a real shift or a real change, and actually work with them over a period of time. Then you are better prepared. So you learn how to think. So I would take them to a group of children who, let us say, don't speak much or do not like art. And the idea is, what can you now do with them? And I will not be bothered about whether you can teach the lesson as I have told you, but how you have to solve a problem which actually is unique. And every problem is unique. And yes, I will be available to help, to support, but ultimately you have to design a solution, you have to try it out, and see how to go. So you are taken to a school, let's say, where there is not much teaching learning material, but you have to teach numeracy. And
Right.
your certain conditions are there that you cannot use the blackboard more than 20% time. Now, what are you going to do? Sort it out. So I think by putting this as a problem solving rather than as an emulation or mimicking kind of thing, you can actually make bigger change.
Absolutely, completely agreed on that. So I mean, just building on this, so just to make things maybe more positive for the whole this set of aspiring teachers, right? As per new, I mean, NEP 2020, there has been kind of game changer, I would say, in terms of ITP, Integrated Teacher Education Program, right? And that is being implemented, and I'm sure you are already involved in even designing that particular bit. at central level, right, national level. So what are your thoughts around the same? What do you think will really change for a student who enters this particular program, and how will this particular pre-service student teacher who walks out after 4 years will be different than the today's teacher?
So, before I think of what the strengths are, I have to point out that we have already become a little inconsistent in the approach on ITEP.
Mhm.
Also allow that now, after introducing ITEP, we are now again back to 1 year courses and 2 year courses as well. So, so there is an issue with how ITEP is going to work, or to the extent to which it can work, which is that for the provider needs a multidisciplinary institute. So it's a big investment, or at least a lot of tie-up, collaborations, or whatever. And for the student has to invest a much longer period of time. And one thing which is still not sorted out is, both the one opting for teaching in primary and the one opting for teaching in secondary will do the same course, same length of course at least.
Same like that, yeah.
Yeah, but one will be paid more than the other. So I think there are a lot, let me just call them business considerations are seriously
Absolutely.
problematic as far as ITEP is concerned. But having said that, let's say we are able to find a solution to all of these kinds of issues, and we are able to implement it well. It is possible that a person can have two dimensions of rigor. One dimension is whatever subject you study. If you are studying maths for 3 years, 4 years, you are able to study that very deeply well. But at the same time, you study it from the perspective of how you are going to teach. So you are studying it more consciously from that perspective, and you're able to note a lot of things, your own difficulties. You will be more sympathetic to the student because you already know this is how you're going to do it. So there are many elements like this. Your exposure is much wider. Your ability to adapt can be much more. You'll be exposed to more subjects. There will be change. Every subject is going to change drastically in the next few years. It'll keep changing. So in terms of preparedness to teach, it is much better. A lot depends on how the faculty. So let me touch on a slightly different dimension. So competence is in terms of conceptual understanding, what kind of information you have, and also the kind of skills you develop. So all of that can be certainly much more advantageous. But a big area is what are the attitudes you develop.
Right.
That's where I think by having this kind of setup, it is possible to develop much more deeply education supportive attitudes than is possible in the shorter course, and by experiencing it from teachers. But like all our policies, though this has a lot of potential, a lot depends on implementation. And for all these reasons I mentioned, it's only gone to, I think, 6,000 institutions till now, produce only 60,000 people out of ITEP. India has a requirement of 1.5 lakh teachers every year. Sorry, 4.5 lakh teachers every year. And we need to, keep going beyond. We are able to absorb 1 to 1.5 lakh. We produce 4.5 lakh. Uh, and ITEP only provides a small part of it. So there is still a lot of room for work on ITEP.
Great to know that. I think ITAP being new or trendy thing right now, many of us actually don't have that much clarity, and I can see clearly that obviously even at the system level we are still gathering clarity about some
Yes,
of the
I
issues
think it's a struggle
around.
at the moment. Yeah, it's not.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's great to know actually that this much thought is being actually given, and then I'm really hoping, we all are hoping that we'll come up with something really great in terms of ITP. So just building on this, so Subir, you have also been part of Niti Aayog's expert group for Vision 35, right? And so what is the kind of teacher of the future that you envision?
Yes, that's a tough one. Because 10 years ago or even 15 years ago, the future was relatively, let me say, more foreseeable,
Mhm.
because the pace of progression was still sort of it could be envisaged. But now the pace of progression is so fast that but I would still like to put down my own sense of it's an idealistic sense, I guess. But what is happening is that uh, okay, first part is that when we were young,
Mhm.
uh, a knowledgeable person was a person who had a lot of information.
Okay.
That's why GK used to be very important. Somebody having GK was seen as some. But today, with a mobile phone, anybody can know anything. So
Absolutely.
who is a knowledgeable person? So that has become that I think, at least in today's time, it may not be forever for the future, but I think a person who knows which are the questions worth asking,
Correct.
how to get to the answers and which answers to respond to, or how to process the different answers you get, and how to take a decision out of that, and how to then basically live your life, in terms of the way you are going.
Yeah.
I also feel that with AI coming in, uh, we don't know how the economy will work out. Economy always finds a way to keep a lot of poor people poor. But let's say that the benefit of AI and changes reach everybody. One thing which will happen is that a lot of us will have a lot more time at our hand than we did earlier. Then
Yeah.
how do you use your time becomes a very big issue. What to do, what not to do. So this sense of discriminating between what is appropriate, what is not appropriate,
Yeah.
being able to imagine and envisage future. So the point I'm basically making is that as your basics, ordinary stuff, calculations, processing information, all of those things become easier to do and automate. Your mind will be less occupied by that, and you will have to bring in those things into play, which you were not using as much. As I mentioned, imagination, planning,
Critical thinking.
creating, sequencing. So the teacher of the future will have to be the one who can deal with higher order things.
Right.
He will have to teach children that what not to do is as important as what to choose. Like if you have, I've just written about this, that earlier when you had to decide what to do, you had limited options, and your thing was how to decide what is best. But now you have unlimited options.
Correct.
So you have to first decide which ones I will not look at, then decide
Correct.
which ones I will look at. So,
Absolutely.
so there's a different level of discernment, discrimination that now comes in. So I think the teacher of the future will have to be very savvy. We'll have to be aware of what are the questions, what are the mental and social and emotional abilities and skills children have to be equipped with, how to use those to derive learner specific content. Maybe there will not even be common textbooks for all. So there will be a lot of differences, and I think teacher will become a person who will have to be a kind of real time uh, guide to the student rather than the whole class teacher kind of. So teachers will have to be different persons uh, from what they are now, when knowledge is not static.
Absolutely. I think things will become more dynamic, if I may say. It's not
Absolutely, yes.
chaotic, I would say. It's dynamic
Dynamic,
in nature.
absolutely. Correct.
I strongly agree. I mean, the approach will change a lot. The role of teacher will change a lot in this case. It's not just. I mean, currently, if we can see the one way, I mean, learning kind of thing is going on, and that will be stopped. I feel once this evolution happens, and will keep on going, right?
Yeah.
So that's really great to know. So I mean, we have covered I guess plenty of deep insights till now. So I'll just shift gears a bit and we'll try to lighten it a bit, this conversation that we are having. So I have a rapid fire round for you, just
Okay.
set of questions where you have to give answer in one word, two words, or maybe one line, two line max. That is the thing. And you don't have to think before
Okay.
giving answer. That's the only rule for this. So are you ready for the same?
Yes, yes, go ahead.
Great, great. So my first question is one book every teacher must read, according to you.
Teaching as a subversive activity.
Okay. And who's the author, if I may ask?
Well, I don't remember just now, but it's quite an old book, and the authors have
Okay,
moved away from what they wrote, but I think the idea is still valid.
absolutely. Great, great. Thanks a lot. So, what is one myth about teachers or teaching that you would love to bust?
Oh, the teachers don't want to teach.
Okay, great. And who is the most inspiring teacher that you have ever met till now?
Oh, I don't know his name.
Okay.
But sorry, I'll take more than two lines. I went into deep forest during the monsoon, and I
Okay.
met a person on the way. I said, I'm going to the school. He said, I'm the teacher there. There is no other teacher. I'm on way to give this mail, but you can go to my school.
Okay.
I said, why? He said, the classes are running.
Uh-huh.
Went to his school, like another 5 kilometers into the jungle, and I found children working on their own. They knew what to do. They quickly ran to a nearby stream. They wiped their slates, came back and said, sir, now you teach us.
Okay.
So I think he is the greatest teacher I have met.
Great. That's really great to know. I think I have never seen such example. True. Great. So moving on to next question. So if you had just one line of advice for new teachers, the aspiring teachers who are entering classrooms today, what would that be?
Enjoy yourself.
Okay, great to know. And what is that one word that describes today's Indian classrooms?
Tough.
Okay, interesting. Okay, great. And what is that most underrated skill that every teacher should have today?
Listening.
Okay, great. True. And a word that describes the future of teacher education, according to you?
um, Evolving.
Evolving. Okay, okay, fair. And if you weren't in education, let's say, obviously you have spent three decades in it, but let's assume that if you weren't in education, what career might you have chosen?
I would have been a novelist.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. And I mean, right from grassroots to the national level facilitator consultant, right? So this journey has been really incredible to know. So what is one habit that you have which keeps you grounded?
I think every morning I ask myself, what do I need to do in order to be better at what I'm doing?
Wow, that's great to know. And let's say if you had to give one advice to your 25-year-old self in one line, what would that be?
Uh, what would you do if you had only 3 years left to live? And why aren't you doing it?
Wow, that's powerful actually. That's deep. Everyone can ask that.
Yes.
Great, great. So on that note, I'll end this particular round, rapid fire round. Thanks a lot for these short and crisp answers and really exciting answers, I would say. I'm sure our audience will also enjoy the answers. So just moving next, we'll reflect on what you have done so far, right? And I would like to know from you, what is one failure or setback that turned into your greatest teacher till now?
So I think I have such a long list of failures, but so let me start with the earliest one.
Okay.
You know, so when I began working in this tribal area, the first thing we did was we the school had 5 classes, but only two teachers, and only one used to be present. So I started teaching there myself in order to understand what it is to work in that situation.
Mhm.
And one morning, I saw that some children had not come.
Okay.
So I went to call children and I went to their home. So I went to a child's home and I found that somebody was lying on the floor, covered with a sheet, and only the child was sitting there. And then I learned that actually that whole family had not eaten for 3 days.
Okay.
And the mother had gone to look for some roots in the forest which they could dig up and eat. The father was too ill and unable to move, and children were just waiting for parents to do something. And I had come to call the child to school. And, it was deeply disturbing. I really couldn't sleep for a lot of time. But the real surprise for me was that few days later, the child started coming to school when things became a bit better. And the question I asked myself was, children come to school with so much investment.
Agreed.
What are we doing to make their time in school worth that investment? And that's a question I have been working on all my life.
Wow. I mean, this particular question should be at the heart of every teacher in the country, I must say.
Absolutely.
What are we doing? Make it worth it for them, right? For the students who are coming there, who are making efforts, plenty of efforts in some cases to come there, arrive there.
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah.
That's great to know. And so we're just building on this. So, what is one message that you would like to give for India's teachers who are listening to this?
So I think for every teacher, you have a right to professional satisfaction.
Mhm.
That means you have a right to feel successful in the class. Success is when children say, "Sir, we enjoyed your class," or "We miss when you are not there," or some parent says, "We are so happy you're a child's teacher." And I think you have a right to that. So give this some thought and think of how you can reach there. You can do it, and maybe you already are doing it. Maybe you're doing it some of the time, and you can do it more of the time. This is what I would say to teachers. My intention is not to make their life difficult, but to have them feel more satisfied with what they are doing.
Ultimately, I guess reflection helps you. Uh,
Yes. And the solution must come from you. Nobody can tell you. Ultimately,
right.
what you decide to do is what will happen in the class.
True. You should be the problem solver ultimately.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Correct, correct. That's really insightful, Subir, and thank you so much for this thought-provoking conversation that we had, and we covered plenty of topics, right, from policy to practice and teacher education, and even future teachers, for that matter, we covered. And your journey has especially been very insightful, very inspiring, I must say. And to all our listeners, I just hope that you enjoyed this particular episode and. It leaves you, I hope it leaves you with both the inspiration as well as the practical reflections, right? We need to reflect on what we are doing basically. So thank you so much, everyone. And until next time, keep learning and keep questioning. Thank you
Thank
so much.
you. Thank you. Thank you all. I hope to hear from people now and then. All the best.
Thanks. Thanks a lot.